Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Wright. I am a rising 3L at the University of Minnesota Law School, and I am here to talk to you about winters in Minnesota. So, first, what is winter? Well, it's a season. It's typical around Minnesota to hear that there are only two seasons in Minnesota, winter and road construction. That isn't entirely true. We do get the other three seasons, and they're also just as much fun as winter. But road construction kind of permeates throughout all four. Winter in Minnesota stretches roughly from mid-November to mid-March. It can fluctuate quite a bit from year to year. Typically, the temperatures will kind of get colder in mid-November and start warming up in mid-March, but that snow doesn't always abide by the same timetable there. Winter is very snowy, very cold, and usually pretty dark. There's less daylight in the winter in Minnesota than there is during the summer. But on the other hand, winter is also very serene. It's absolutely beautiful in Minnesota in the winter, I think. And it's also very clear. I tend to find that the night sky shines a little bit brighter with the stars and the moon in the winter when all that light's reflecting off the snow than it does in the summer. So there's good and bad. What should I do differently in the winter? Well, there's, as my parents like to remind me, 3 Ds about winter that we should remember. The first is dress. So it's going to be cold. The temperature is below freezing, oftentimes below zero, sometimes way below zero with a wind chill. So what you want to do is dress for the weather. That means a winter coat, not like a thin shell of a coat, like a winter coat. You want to wear a hat, as I'm doing now. In August as I'm recording this. And then you also want to wear mittens and gloves. Maybe a scarf could help too to cover skin, especially if it's very windy. Also, if you aren't going to be driving or if you're walking or taking public transit, we have to wait outside, some sort of underlayer can be very helpful. I have a pair of long thermal underwear that I put on most days when I take the bus into school, and those work great. Boots are maybe not as needed, because usually the sidewalks are pretty clear. But if you're going to be walking through yards, maybe you want to invest in a nice pair of boots. The second D is drive. So things tend to slow down when the roads get icy and slippery, and they will some days. Usually they're pretty good, but maybe after a snowstorm or something like that, it takes the city a little bit to catch up with the weather. So that means you're going to want to drive more cautiously. You don't want to drive as quickly, and other people will be doing the same. Also, on narrow city roads, sometimes the snowbanks can really condense things and make it so you can't actually fit 2 cars past each other. Like I said, normally the city catches up with the weather in a day or so that usually gets better, but it's something to think about if you're going to be driving and keeping a car around. And that third D I've already hinted at is delay. So in the winter, things tend to move a little bit slower, but schedules don't actually change. So what you're going to want to do is plan accordingly for longer commute times, to make sure that you get to where you need to be on time still, even though it's going to take you longer to get from, say, South Minneapolis to Mondale Hall in the winter than it otherwise would in the summer. Also, you're going to want to keep an eye on the weather. A lot of times, a bigger snowstorm rolling through is something everyone will hear about and we'll share with you and make sure you're aware of, but that can also impact commute times pretty significantly, drastically, because the city usually doesn't plow until all the snow is done falling. And also, you're going to want to be aware of city parking rules if you have a car. Like I mentioned earlier, city roads need to be plowed to keep those snowbanks out of the middle of the road. And so depending on the time of day and the numbering on your street, you're going to need to park on a certain side of the street. For example, I lived in Minneapolis last year, and Minneapolis has very clear instructions on their city website about where to park and when you need to be parked during the winter. So I would check the city website of wherever you're living. So the big question is, how do I have fun in the winter? Well, like all things in law school, it depends. Outside, and I'm more of an outside winter person than an inside winter person, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of different sports, be that like pick up hockey at a lot of the parks. I think pretty much every park in Minneapolis at least has a couple ice rinks every winter. There's also a lot of lakes around even the Twin Cities and more the further out you go that you can do ice fishing on, snowmobiling, stuff like that. Leisure, there's a lot of cross-country ski routes around the Twin Cities, and like I said, even more as you get outside of the cities proper. So that's something that I've taken advantage of. There's also more niche stuff if you have a little more time. I know there's a lot of kind of fun spots you can go and get pulled around in a sled by some dogs. There's also a lot of sledding, period. Decent amount of hills, although Minnesota's pretty flat on the whole. But there's also skiing and snowboarding at some of the quote-unquote mountains around the Twin Cities as well. And there's also just a lot of good stuff to explore around the Twin Cities. It's a very outdoor-friendly city, and that doesn't change, or Minneapolis and St. Paul are, and that doesn't change in the winter at all. It's just, again, you're going to want to remember to dress appropriately so that you can not get really cold while you are exploring. Inside doesn't change so much, I would say. Whatever you like doing in the other seasons, inside is probably what you're going to like to do in winter. These are three things that I enjoy doing inside no matter the time of year. Board games, especially cribbage, are really fun for me to do. Good books, or maybe books that aren't quite the same as law school books. You know, Harry Potter scratches a different itch for me than my torts textbook. And cooking is also fun. And, you know, seasonal cooking is a very real thing in Minnesota too. So usually you get some heartier dishes, some different ingredients available at grocery stores in the winter than you otherwise would have with like fresh produce, or certain types of fresh produce, I should say, in the summer, or flea markets around the cities. So that's kind of the general overview about winter in Minnesota. It's definitely something you need to prepare for, but it's something that can be very fun at the same time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. My email address is right here on the screen. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in and around Mondale soon.